everyone, welcome to my new video. Today I will tell you about a flood that happened in my house, but not here in Georgia, because this is just a TikTok filter that I found interesting. But in my hometown in Russia, there was a big flood and many people were affected, including my parents, the house where I grew up. So in this video I want to tell you about that and about the problem of floods in Russia in general, because it's the situation that can tell you a lot more about Russia, I think, and about how people live there. So when this flood happened, I immediately felt angry and I posted this Insta story saying thanks the Putin's 20 years of stability for the fact that now my house looks like this. And this word stability became a meme in Russia. This is what Putin supporters use as a good side of Putin's policies, like, yes, we live not richly, but at least we have stability. So I posted it, but I understand that it is unfair to blame the government in natural disasters because such things can happen in any country. So in this video I will try to be unbiased and factual, and by the end of this video we will see, was this story excessive or justified. And now I will tell you about the flood in details and how it happened, how it reached my house. So I come from a region called Primorsky Krai. It is located in the eastern part of Russia, close to China. There Vladivostok is the capital, but my hometown is called Spassk Dalny. And there was a big flood, a lot of rain fell, the water started going to the area of the town close to the river. I in fact made a video about the district. It is very quiet here. This house actually an example of nice old Russian patterns. It requires a good skill to be able to curve these patterns. Welcome to our yard. And this is my dog June, who will be accompanying me the whole video. Что ты там уже взял себе? Отдай, отдай, отдай. So the water started approaching houses, and at 5 in the morning it was already on our vegetable garden, and then it came into the house. My mom woke up, and from 5 to 7 a.m. water continued to arrive. My mom took our animals to the house, and you can see how the animals were confused. The water was ankle deep, and my parents decided to take different appliances and our pets to the attic. And in fact, our attic is a very dusty and dirty place. We only used to store old stuff there. And since I live in Georgia, my time is different, and after those videos from my mom, I went to bed. But when I woke up in several hours, I opened a new message from my mom. There the level of water was already waist high, and my mom says, this is our house now, we now are in the attic with the animals. So they were like hiding there from the water, and I was really shocked to see these photos, because this is my house where I grew up and I know every corner of that place. I remember what my skin felt when I touched that sofa, and now it is so unnatural. I look at this and I feel that no, it shouldn't be like this. It is my house, why is it under the water? And I started to be scared for my parents because the water was continuing to come, and I was afraid that it would reach the attic and they will be completely flooded. That also was possible. And I started messaging them like, how are you? How's the level of water? But they were not answering me. So for about 2 hours, I was in this feeling like I don't know what is happening to them. I started imagining all the worst scenarios in my head, and even by the pictures that my mom sent, I tried to calculate the level of water that is there now. But according to my calculation, the water level was not that high. But still, since I didn't get any messages from my mom, I wanted to find at least some information, so I went to our local Telegram groups. After Instagram was banned and considered an extremist organization by the Russian government, different governmental institutions who had their news channels moved from Instagram to Telegram. So it's really convenient. I went there, but what was the most outrageous for me was that I couldn't even read comments under the posts about the flood. I really wanted to know about the situation, how's the level of water, but I am banned in that Spassky administration group because back in September 2022, during mobilization, there were posts encouraging people to go to war or to donate money for the military equipment. And I wrote some critical and negative comments there. I didn't insult anybody. I was just trying to change people's opinion, but I was blocked there. So now I don't know what is happening, what is with my parents, and I cannot even see the comments from people of my own town. But finally, my mom answered me and she said, the water is still going up, but we are okay. And I messaged them, maybe you should evacuate, because in fact rescue teams were going through flooded streets and evacuating people, but they decided to stay in the attic because they wanted to take care of our animals, because many people did leave their animals behind, and in that area of the town people still chain their dogs to the houses, so they use dogs as security, and unfortunately many people did not unchain their animals and they died. But then again, for the next 2 hours I didn't receive messages from my parents and I started to be really anxious, but I calmed myself down that probably I'm dramatizing too much and they are okay. And to make me feel even worse, I started to think that this is probably how people felt in Ukraine when recently there was a destruction of Kakhovka Dam, causing loss of human and animals' lives. And in general, I started to think about the war and what people feel when they call to their relatives who are being bombed or flooded and their relatives don't answer them back, or they answer but you hear bombings through the phone. And of course I waited for the message from my parents just for 2 hours, but people in Ukraine live like this for 2 years already. And when the war in Ukraine started, I looked at photos of destroyed towns, of dead people, and I tried to transfer this situation to myself and imagine what it feels like when a neighboring country invades your homeland. And I started to imagine that China has invaded my town and my region, Primorsky Krai, because we are really close to China. That's why I imagine this country, nothing against Chinese people. So I imagined how tanks pass through the street where I grew up, how their tracks leave traces on such familiar places for me, how they bombed my school and all that stuff. But in fact, I could not still understand what it's like, because in reality my town was okay and the war did not come to my house. I'm still not even close to what people in Ukraine felt. But then I imagined, what if it was not a flood but an invasion? Not a natural disaster, but a thing caused by people from a neighboring country, and I would feel hatred and disgust towards the occupiers. And the difference, of course, is that there is the vicious nature that plays its games, and there is a man-made war that could be avoided, that could be not started. And although this video is about the flood, I still mentioned the war in Ukraine because I cannot ignore this when I speak about life in Russia in general, because well, it is all connected, and Russian politics, the policies of Putin, they affect Ukraine, they affect life of people in Russia, in different Russian regions. And I think that all the money that the Russian government spends on the war, on killing people, they could use this money to prevent such floods. But I will talk about this later in this video. So my mom finally answered me, and she told that actually during the day dad went out of the house with our phones, their phones, and he was holding them like on the level of his head because the water was about waist high for him, and he said that the stream was really strong. So he went to the house of our grandmother. She lives about 15 minutes walk from our house, and she lives in the apartment block, so she was not affected. He charged phones there and returned home. And overall, my parents spent 3 days in the attic. I think for them it was an unforgettable experience. And generally, not only Spassk was affected by the city of Ussurisk, it is a bigger city, and in Ussurisk, water even reached the apartment blocks. Thousands of households suffered from the flood. There were several people reported dead. Rescuers evacuated people. There were shelters deployed for the people who lost their home, and volunteers gave out food and humanitarian help. After a couple of days, the water was gone, but it was not the end because a new stage begins, a stage of drying the houses. In the volunteer chats, people asked for help to remove the furniture because it was heavy, or remove the corpse of animals from the streets because there was a terrible smell. My parents started to clean the house, and they managed to save some appliances like laptops, but our refrigerator, washing machine, and a sofa were completely destroyed. And our cabinets were made from particle board, so when it gets soaked with water, these cabinets just collapsed. So my parents also had to throw it away, and then they removed the linoleum and the boards that were under it as well. And now they dried the house with the heat gun. Then they peeled the plaster of the walls, and this is how it looks. Then they will patsy it again because otherwise there can be mold. And because of the dampness outside of our house, there was a swamp. And this is the video that my mom sent to me. You can hear all the animal life in their natural habitats. At the special revenues, people could take food. My parents also took one package, buckwheat, some pasta, preserves, and then they took a gas stove from our grandparents, so they were able to cook it because there were no electricity in the house. But I wonder how people who did not have such gas stoves, what did they do? I don't know. And all these days my parents have been drying the house and cleaning it, and they also have to go to work, so after the work until the midnight they're doing that. They put so much effort in that house, they live there for a long time, and now they have to do all this hard work. There are many videos of how people were evacuated. You can see the whole situation, the level of water. But I especially want to show you this video from Ussurisk, where a prison guard forced a prisoner to carry him on a cart so that he doesn't get his feet wet. The press service of the Penitentiary Service of Russia stated that the prison employees grossly violated the code of ethics, and the employee will be held accountable. But I really doubt that they will do anything. I think that he will be all right. And this is far from the worst thing that happens in the Russian prisons, but I think that it is really indicative of how, in general, the Russian government treats people in the country. So now I want to take a closer look to how the authorities responded to the flood. I went to the website of the state-controlled TV channel in Russia. It's called Channel One, and there they did cover the flood, but I noticed that they showed it in a way that everything is okay. They didn't report that there were dead people. No, they just showed that situation is under the control, people are accommodated in the shelters and are grateful for help.
Последствия наводнения устраняют круглосуточно, развернутые пункты временного размещения, где пострадавшим оказывают всю необходимую помощь.
Что, ничего. Спасибо, что тут хоть нас приютили.
Очень довольна, что нам сразу кровати дали, чистое белье, кормят каждый раз свежим, привозят и завтрак, и обед.
Всего в Приморье развернуты 12 таких пунктов. В них разместили около 500 человек. С людьми работают специальные комиссии.
Then there was an episode from the front line about the achievements of the Russian army and the military doctors, about the loss of the Ukrainian army. And then, in the end, they showed the news episode about fire in Hawaii and that so many people suffered, the government is not doing anything, and Biden just went to the beach in another state.
Провалом не иначе называют жители Гавайев то, как местные власти действуют в условиях ЧС. На острове Мауи сильнейшие лесные пожары, а помощь населению практически нулевая. Не хватает пунктов временного размещения, продукты, генераторы, автомобильное топливо пострадавшим подвозят волонтеры. Пожары на Гавайях уже назвали самыми смертоносными в стране за целый век. Погибли 93 человека, и, вероятно, цифра будет расти. Намерен ли президент посетить штат? Вопрос. Джо Байден на него ответил уклончиво. Сейчас у главы Белого дома очередной отпуск в штате Делавер. После велосипедной прогулки отдых на пляже.
I don't know, I can see that the situation in Hawaii was bad, but I can't ignore the bias with which the state Russian media portrayed the United States. Like, look, we handle everything while the West is collapsing. And I know that in the United States there are two channels that show some things one-sidedly and biasedly, but at least there people can choose what channel they want to watch and they can compare different points of view. While in Russia, all TV channels, radio and newspapers are controlled by the government and people simply cannot see another opinion. So, knowing that I can't get much in the state media, I went again to the local Telegram groups and I found the channel of the governor of Primorsky Krai, and there I saw videos of him patrolling the towns with the rescuing team, checking how people are provided with help. So, credit to his PR team. And there was another post with the kind stories to post to melt the hearts of people. So there the governor says, after visiting the towns affected by the flood, I noticed one thing, how kind and united our people are. And this is one colorful example. This is a story about people, about kind people. And we have many of them. And here they show a story of a woman who came to a shelter where people were accommodated, and she said that she can accommodate another woman with 3 kids who was just lying on the floor on the blankets. And I understand that it is a touching story, but I didn't like seeing the governor there because this is just how the government uses such stories for creating copium for people. Why they did not accommodate people in normal shelters, like there was a hotel next to that building? Or why, at the first place, they did not create a better economical situation so that a mother with 3 kids does not lay on the floor? No, we will suffer, but we will overcome all the difficulties because we are united. There are videos how the governor is touching the box of instant noodles. I don't know what he wanted to see there. I think he really regrets that instead of sitting in his warm office and drinking coffee, he now has to go through the villages, speaking to those peasants. And I cannot judge the work of rescue teams. I think they did a great job. I think that they did everything they could. But I found this interesting video where people in Ussurisk surrounded the governor, and a woman asks him and complains why people themselves had to feed the rescuers and give them boots and so on.
И мы их кормим. Спасателей никто не кормит. Покупали вот такие сапоги, покупали фонари налобные. Их никто не снабжает. Пожалуйста, сделайте так, чтобы МЧС нормально, чтобы они смогли помогать.
And the governor just says, I will look into it. So Oleg Kozhemyaka became the governor in 2018 under very strange circumstances. So in September of that year, gubernatorial elections were held, and there were 2 competing candidates, Andrei Ishchenko from the Communist Party and another candidate from the ruling Putin's party, which is called United Russia. I personally rooted for the former Ishchenko because he comes from at least not the Putin's party, and he was popular in the region. And during the counting, Ishchenko was in the lead, but after 95% of the votes had been counted, his opponent began to gain ground. And after that, it was clear, even to the government in Moscow, that these elections were falsified. And then repeat elections were held in December. But guess what? Ishchenko, the candidate popular among the people, was not even allowed to participate in that elections. And then Oleg Kazhemyaka appears on the scene. He becomes the governor. He was appointed by Putin because he is loyal to him. And in fact, in Russia, while governors should be elected by people, they are approved by Putin because he only gathers the loyal people around him. That's why I dislike this governor, and it's funny how for him this flood became a pain in the ass because 1 month after that there were another elections of the governor. But at the same time, the flood was not a problem for him because the authorities in Moscow already decided and they drew all the needed votes for him. So Oleg Kazhemyaka again becomes governor of Primorsky Krai in September of this year. This is a story about just one region, Primorsky Krai, but such situations happen all over Russia. But now let's go to the lower level and see how the authorities of a small town help the victims of the flood. For example, this is a video where some village administration employees say that they bring bread to the villagers. Of course, it's not the only humanitarian help that the government gave to people, but it was just funny to see this bread in this box. And on August 22, a Russian Flag Day is celebrated. And there is a video of volunteers from the organization called Молодая гвардия, or the Young Guard. It is a youth organization that is created by the United Russia. So this organization attracts teenagers to participate in good deeds and volunteering, but in fact their activities are closely related to the state propaganda and militarism. So there, girls from this organization bring some gas for the stove to this woman, some blankets, and there's the Russian flag waving above them. And here on their vests it says, "Our loyalty to the fatherland gives us strength." It is a line from the Russian national anthem. And it looks so cartoonish to me, and I'm really sorry for this old woman whose pension is about $200 per month. And I'm sorry for these girls for whom this is probably one of the few activities in Spassk, and they don't even know how the government is using them with all this volunteering. It is also amusing to see what language the government is using and how it reflects the current political situation. This is a video of an official from the Ministry of Emergency Situations of Russia, and he said that we also got international help from the brotherly nation of Belarus. And here I want to highlight this phrase, the brotherly nation. The concept of brotherly nation used to be about 3 countries, Russia, Belarus, and Ukraine, because we all are Eastern Slavic people. We speak languages that are quite related to each other. We are located geographically close. So when I was a kid, I really believed that narrative because I have Ukrainian roots, I have Belarusian roots, and many people have relatives in Ukraine, and we had common cultural connections, singers. There was a Ukrainian choir in Spassk, and I went to their concert. But these brotherly connections were severed in 2014, and since that time the Russian state propaganda has been slandering Ukrainian people, and now it is really inappropriate to say that Ukraine is our brotherly nation, given what Russia is doing in Ukraine now. So it's just funny to me how now we have only one brother left. And it's disgusting to me how the government has appropriated the words motherland and fatherland for their own gain. In addition to the official messages from the administration, there were also messages in the volunteers group chat where people asked for help with removing heavy furniture and so on. Many people were hesitant to ask for help so that their neighbors wrote for them. And I think it comes from the fact that people actually never even relied on the government, and now they think that the situation is completely hopeless and that they don't even have the right to demand something from the government.
У нас первый раз топило в основном по окнам, но еще как-то терпимо было, а это раз вот, пожалуйста.
Начала тут пребывать сначала. У нас каждый год тут она пребывает. Запах какой ванизм вообще. Не знаю, если вы выдержите такой ванил. Боже, страх.
Ну точно с голоду не помрем.
Конечно.
100%. Мы люди русские. Все преодолеем. Так что это все мелочь для нас. Лишь бы войны не было, а все остальное мелочь.
At least there is no war is another phrase that people say to justify the policies of Putin. But I don't understand this man, because there are already so many new graves in his city Ussurisk, and he says that there is no war. There is already war at the borders of Russia that Russia started. And you can see it even from messages that women sent to the group chat. So there were a lot of messages from wives of the soldiers who went to the SMO, the Special Military Operation. This is how the Russian government allows this war to be called. So now I will read you some of these messages. I need help. I need to tear up the linoleum. My husband is at SMO. My son too. I am alone. Is there anyone who can help me? Grandmother lives alone. Grandson is at SMO. Everything has drowned. She asked for help in drying and pumping water from the cellar. A wife of a SMO contract soldier doesn't know how to take things out of the house. Her husband left again on Friday, and on Saturday they lost everything. Hello, please tell me, my mother was flooded. I live there with my child, and my husband is in SMO. Do you need any documents from me? My friend's everything was drowned. Her husband is at SMO. There is no one to help at all. The family of a woman and her mother needs help to take out the bed and sofa. There is no one to help. Husband and son are at the SMO. Here is a big message where woman says that they also lost everything, and there are 3 men left in the family. One is at SMO, the other 2 live in Kamchatka. And this is a message from a person who has taken some copium. This is a nature playing a cruel joke. Ask for help not from the government and mayor, but from nature. Maybe it will give you more. But besides us, there is also the SMO, and they also need finance. The regional budget, the country's budget cannot be increased instantly. The authorities are doing everything possible to help. But the cherry on top was this message. Mom's everything drowned. We haven't lived richly and will not start. So this is a self-ironic Russian phrase like we never were rich and we always will be poor. She really needs ordinary help, bedding, washing supplies, to clean the house from machine oil and shit from common toilets. And when I read this message, I was like, oh my god, I didn't even think about this, but indeed. The thing is that in that area of the city, there are many households who don't have toilet in the house, so they go outside. There's literally like in Shrek cartoon, just a hole in the board. And by the way, in my yard, there is also such a toilet, but we didn't use it because my parents made a sewage system when I was little. But still, even to our house, this water from the common toilets arrived. By the way, according to the 2019 Rosstat study, 22% of the Russian population don't have centralized sewerage. So 1/5 of the Russian population go to the toilet in the street. I'm sorry if you are eating now, but I just could not miss it. It's an apogee of my indignation when I read that message. Like, imagine their husbands are taken to the war, or they went there voluntarily for big money, and there are also many people like this. But anyway, the husband is at the front, and now this woman is alone. Her house is in shit, and nobody is to help her. So I don't know, this country wants to save Ukraine from something?
У меня прописан здесь сын, дочь и я. Муж у меня на СВО, он здесь не прописан. Все вот вместе отдираем, отгребаем, потому что помощи нет никакой. Вот мы женщины таскаем вот эти мебели, не мебели. Сейчас вот съездим, мебель посмотрим, потому что дочке не на чем спать.
But since the Russian government has enough oil money to pay wages to the soldiers, they can use some small parts of this money for calming down the peasants. Now I will talk about the monetary compensation that the government paid to people. And first there was initial payment of 10,000 rubles, which is 100 American dollars, and it was paid per family member. People had to write an application for each family member, and then a special commission was checking if these people really lived in that house. And they have two ways for this. First, in Russia, we still have this kind of peasantry system of registration. So a person should be registered in some place, even if they don't live there. For example, I am registered in my house and my sister is too. We also got the money from the government. Thank you. But how people who were not registered in that house but lived there could receive money? In that situation, the commission was asking the neighbors or checking some medical reports. I think it's good that people who didn't have registration also could receive money. But what about old grandmas who live there alone, who don't have children or whose children died in the war? So she will receive a really small portion of money. So anyway, my parents, my sister and I each received $100. And then there was another payment for the property loss. 10,000 rubles or $100 for each family member if water has entered the house by 10 centimeters. 50,000 rubles or $500 for each family member if property is partially damaged, and 100,000 rubles, which is $1,000 for each family member for the complete loss of property. So the level of damage counted by the commission in my house was partial, and we also received 50,000 rubles each. So overall, my family got 240,000 rubles, which is $2,400. And by Russian standards, it's quite a lot. It's like 8 monthly salaries of my mom. But then there was another payment for home repairs. If the commission confirms that a house was significantly damaged, my parents can get 7,000 rubles, which is $70 for each square meter of the house's area. My parents have already received half of this amount, and they will get the other half in a few months when they will finish the repairs. Of course, nobody will pay them for the time they spend on this, but at least they got money for the material. But I still think that it's not enough, because if you look at the current prices for refrigerator, for a sofa, I think this money will cover only a half of the expenses. And it's great that they paid at least something to us, but there were many cases, and my mom told me about that, and I read about this in the group chats, where people lost all their property, where their house is cracking down, but the commission assessed the damage incorrectly, so they received just $100. And now they have to fill out the form again, invite the commission again, to go to the court, and so on. So another problem for people. And besides the renovation and the furniture, also it's important that many people in that area lived off their garden.
У нас огород весь полностью, помидоры, что мы, картошка, все затопилось.
Это же запасы на зиму как бы.
Ну да.
Теперь...
Вообще сейчас ничего, только вот покупать.
And my parents also have a vegetable garden. Every year they dig up about 40 buckets of potatoes.
Different vegetables, tomatoes, cabbages and potatoes.
Now I'm taking this it's sarapka. I don't know what to call it in English. It's scratch, maybe? Scratch on the ground from the potatoes. And here's our buckets. And this year all this harvest was lost. And there was one more compensation for the harvest, but it was just 2,000 rubles, which is $20. I think it is a joke. What about the grandmothers who spend all summer in that vegetable garden and who really rely on this, and now they don't have anything to eat? You know how the supporters of Putin and this war say that we are not afraid of your sanctions because our Russian babushka can live off their garden. But now these poor women don't even have the garden, their husbands and sons are at the SMO, and their house is in shit.
Я не знаю, что мы будем делать зимой. И как я маленькую пенсию получаю, я вообще...
На макароны перейдем. На макароны будем, да, ничего, перебьем с макароны.
Зерна нет. Ну, Путин говорит, что много зерна, на миллионы опять.
And now I want to talk about the flooding problem in Russia in general, what was the reason of this, and was it possible to prevent it? Every year there are big floods in different Russian regions, and particularly Primorsky Krai is prone to flooding, and I did some research and found that during the period from 1968 to 2005, 24 large and catastrophic floods occurred in Primorsky Krai. And since 2011, the region has had strongest typhoons almost every year. So situations like this happened in different villages of our region every year. And I wonder why, for all this time, nothing was made to prevent it somehow. And the reason of the flood this year was a big typhoon, which is a tropical cyclone. There was a lot of rainfall, the rivers overflowed, and a dam in Ussurisk burst. On TV, they said that according to the inspection, it turned out that the construction of the dam was not completed on time, and in addition, the project documentation was violated. A criminal case has been opened, and the dam builders will be punished. But for me, it is suspicious how quickly they placed all the blame onto one person. And I want to ask what the governor was doing all these years that he was ruling this region. I believe that the dam indeed was built with problems, but who is responsible for this? Who has created such a system with corruption? And I found some interesting video that went viral in the local Telegram groups. Here, the mayor of Ussurisk talks to some men. They ask him why this happened. This is what he says.
Вы что, думаете, будете со мной спорить, что ли? Да мы копейки денег нам не дали. Федеральные. Вы поймите, все реки федеральные. Нам туда зайти вообще не дают. Мы пишем бумаги. Похер. Все собственность федеральная. Им насрать на нас с вами.
They had to give us 11 billion rubles, but they don't give a shit about us. We cannot go into rivers. And I was confused, like who he means by them and what it means to go into the rivers. But then I found out that according to the federal law, the authorities of Primorsky Krai don't have the right to clean the riverbeds themselves. Only the federal authorities from Moscow can approve that and give them all the needed equipment. And the local authorities can clean the riverbeds only after the state of emergency was declared. So only after the flood happened. And cleaning of riverbeds is necessary because it gets clogged with all the debris and trees. They become shallow and therefore the water overflows the banks. By the way, several years ago, my friend and I made a video, like a parody of a popular song, where we were singing about the river Kuleshovka in our town. And this is me taking out the trash from the river. And there were such lines. Ice smells in Kuleshovka. We don't know who lives there. We will be soaked under the rain, under the acid rain, because we live in Spassk. So now I understood what the Ussurisk mayor was talking about. Even though they asked the authorities of Moscow every year, they just ignored it. I found a post from the last year where the governor of our region was already addressing this problem, and I found a post about a meeting that happened before the flood this year. There, the governor speaks to Vyacheslav Volodin, a chairman of State Duma, and he says that we need to change the law so that we have more powers to clean the rivers. Volodin agrees to this, smiles to him, nothing is done, and then 1 month later there is a big flood. But finally, after this flood, the governor posted that they managed to ask Moscow for some equipment and permission to clean the riverbeds. And here he says riverbeds were not cleaned for 30 years. And I found it funny how the governor contrasts himself to the previous rulers, even though it was him and the United Russia Party who were ruling the region. And I wrote a comment. Yes, I am blocked in all comment sections of all towns of our region. But there was one group that for some reason didn't block me, the bastion of democracy, the government of Primorsky Krai. So there I wrote a comment. Oh no, how come that for 30 years nobody cleaned the riverbeds? The president has been in power for 20 years already, the governor for 5 years, while Primorsky Krai is flooded every year. But nobody replied to me because I was blocked. And maybe some people will say that it is normal when such faraway territories are less developed than the capital, but if you look at the map of density of Russian population, you will see that Primorsky Krai, the south of Siberia and the southwest of Russia are quite populated by people. And I wish the Russian authorities, who are concentrated exclusively in Moscow, understood it. Because the state media covers such floods every year, but they show it as if it's something normal and that this problem never can be solved, and anyway, it is some peasants in the outskirts of the country, so don't worry about them. I am not asking to build skyscrapers in Spassk. I just want basic needs to be met, and this shows once again how much Russia is centralized. Because Russia is a federation, but in fact it functions like there are colonies around Moscow. And Moscow takes all the money from the regions, makes good infrastructure in the city, pays good allowances and salaries to people in the capital, and gives some small pennies to that peasants so that they can meet only their basic needs, but don't get too full, because God forbid they will start asking questions. But the economic inequality of Russian regions is not the only drawback of the Putin's regime. He has taken all the power to himself. He destroyed the civil society, the free media, and now he is destroying Ukraine, killing people there every day. And I decided to make a video about these floods to show you how people live in Russia, what can happen in such a political regime. And I just want to show to people who wear pink glasses and think that Russia is on the right side of history, that Putin is a man of the people, that Russia is a bastion of traditional values and it stays strong against the West with its transgenders. And I want these people to take off their glasses and understand that when you see these beautifully polished videos of the central streets of Moscow, the well-dressed people and stuff, just know that this is also Russia. This is how Russian streets look. This is how people look. Yes, it's not Moscow, but it is many other regions of the country. And it's sad because Russia is a country with a great potential that can be democratic, prosperous, progressive, and where people can live peacefully. So this was my video, and I wanted to share it with you because this flood affected not me personally, but my house, my parents, my hometown, my region, and It really speaks to me. I liked and also disliked to read all these official posts from administration, messages. So I hope it was interesting for you to learn about this too. Although I don't know why would people watch videos about disasters in another part of the world, because again, there are so many bad things happening around the world. So I really hope that this video will not make you depressed, sad. No, life goes on. Yes, there's horrible things going on, but we will stand. We will overcome this. And I wish you to have a great day, great week. Thank you very much for watching this video. Write your comments, subscribe to my channel, and goodbye. Пока-пока.